will begin. So welcome to the regional webinar tonight. It is Wednesday, April 8th. And again, we're just going to look at some clips tonight. So let me get us out of this. Don't need to save that. And we'll get us to the clips we're going to look at. So the first thing we're going to start with is some tactical fouls. We've got 6 tactical fouls we're going to have a look at. And then there's some interesting ones under game management, if we have time to get there, that we'll talk about a little bit. These are from week 1 of MLS. So these are brand new clips, basically, from the beginning of March. There was only 2 weeks of MLS, so unfortunately we don't have that many to look at. But these are very, very recent clips, and hopefully will give us something to learn from. So here's the first one, and I will let you watch it a couple times, and then we'll put up a poll and see what everybody thinks. Here we go. All right, we're going to watch that one more time. And for anybody who has a jumpy screen, I will pause it at the moment of truth. I'll leave it there, and then I'll put the poll up. That's our moment of truth. So I'm going to launch the poll, and let's see what everybody has. A few more seconds to get your votes in. All right. So I'm going to suggest that we try something. We've tried it a couple of calls before. If you had yellow card for stopping a promising attack, please, in using the chat feature, type the considerations for stopping a promising attack, and more importantly, what is not present for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity here. So you have yellow card instead of red card. Please use the chat feature and type, only if you had a yellow card, what consideration you feel is missing for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. I'll wait a few seconds for people. Make sure you're choosing all attendees as well for your comments so that people can see it. Again, please use the attendees. All right, we're seeing a handful of people saying the attacker did not have possession of the ball, and we're seeing a few people say the distance is the primary concern. Okay, thank you for those of you for yellow card. For those of you who have red card here, let's hear your response to those people who say either distance or control the ball is not present. So put a pause for people who had yellow card, people who said red card. Let's hear your reasons, particularly why you think distance and possession is not an issue here. So go ahead and type those into the chat feature, and let's see what we have. Specifically respond to that concern about distance and possession. Nobody for red card wants to comment. Okay. There we go. All right, so I'm going to share the results now of the poll so we can see where we ended up. Just about 50% of us had red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and a solid 40% had yellow card, and another 10% said there was just a careless foul, no misconduct. So I'm going to start with the 10% who had careless foul, no misconduct. It's safe to say, no matter if you're on yellow card or red card here, that this is clearly some sort of promising attack. If you're going to call a foul in this scenario, you are going to have misconduct of some kind. So now we have to break down why this is either a yellow card or a red card. So I'm going to make this screen bigger again. At the moment of truth here, if we go back a little bit more, when we're talking about spa and dog show scenarios, one of the easiest things we can do is pretend like the guilty party doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to get to you to think about here is, if this guilty party doesn't commit a foul here, if they didn't exist, do we think this player has a promising attack or an obvious goal scoring opportunity here? And we have to think about things like, what's the distance to goal, what's the direction to goal, the number of defenders involved, and most importantly, possession of the ball, or the clear ability to gain possession. That's specifically in the laws of the game. And so in this scenario, even though he doesn't have possession of the ball exactly when he's fouled, we have to ask ourselves, does he have the obvious ability to gain possession of the ball? And I think if you watch the way this ball is going, the answer is very clearly yes. It's not been overhit. It's in his path to run and get it. Were he not tripped up by the player here, it's very safe to assume he gets on the end of this ball, because it's just sitting right there for him. It's in the center of the field, and he's just outside the penalty area. So the answer on this one is we want to send off here for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And again, the only way you're going to be able to really pick that up in this and many other scenarios is ask yourself, what would happen if this player wasn't there? If this player wasn't there and or did not commit a foul, if you take them out of the equation, then the answer is, do they have an obvious goal scoring opportunity? And the answer here is clearly yes. So more advanced referees, which as regional referees we would hope that you would be, are already evaluating the situation before the foul happens and recognize that you have a dog show scenario. So this referee, as he's evaluating as this play develops, recognizes this is the last defender, this ball's through and on goal, as is the attacker, and they know before the foul happens that if this player commits a foul, it's going to be a red card. The reason we need to do that is because after the foul occurs, then it's easy to think, oh, well, maybe he could have gotten back, or maybe that ball wouldn't have got there, who knows. Once the foul has happened, it's hard to judge at that moment whether or not that player would have kept going or not. So you actually have to be evaluating it before the foul happens, so that you know, if a foul happens here, I'm going to have a red card or a yellow card, depending on what the situation is. So the correct answer here we're looking for is a red card. I will replay it one more time so you can watch it in full speed. Clearly a red card situation. So any questions on that analysis? Please use the chat feature if you have any questions. I'm going to copy a comment here out of the chat feature that I think is the most meaningful. So I just pasted it in there. Dog So Red has not controlled the ball, but he has the space and speed to gain control before other players get to it. Perfect analysis there. Well done. Any questions on that before we move on to the next one? All right, then I will move us along. Whoops. Sorry. Increase the screen. There we go. There'll be a better replay here right towards the end. There we go. All right, so that's our moment of truth. Hopefully everybody has seen it. I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll again. Antonio Franco, please stop raising your hand. There's no need to be raising your hand. A few more seconds to get your votes in. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share the results on this one. I'm not going to go through a discussion here. So we had about 70% say yellow card, and we had 30% of the room say red card. The reason this is a yellow card, and Pro did a very lengthy explanation on this clip after it happened. The reason this is a yellow card and not a red card is because of the distance to goal. This is not an obvious goal scoring opportunity because we have no idea if this shot was going to go on goal, if it was going to have the distance to get there, or if this defender was going to be able to get back there and block it. There's too much unknown in that scenario to not, or to give a red card, excuse me. There's too much unknown. It's not obvious enough. Now, if he plays the ball to this guy and he goes to goal and there's a handball down here, maybe that's a different scenario. But on a shot from midfield, very clearly blocked by the goalkeeper's hands, it's still too uncertain as to whether or not this was obviously a goal-scoring opportunity. That's why the referee has gone with yellow card, and that's why he was supported by the laws of the game. So well done on this one. We definitely want to have a yellow card if we see this very, very rare situation happen in a game. Any questions on that analysis? Very good question from Jordan. What if the red circled player is taken out of the equation? Pro still says this is going to be a yellow card. Now, this player makes this an easier decision because he's down here. But even if this player is not there, more than likely this is still going to be a yellow card because of the distance to goal. Remember, with denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity, there are 4 factors that all have to be present: distance to goal, direction to goal, clear possession, and number of defenders. All 4 of those boxes need to be checked for you to send a player off for denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. If even one is not present, then we have to downgrade to a caution. And in this scenario, we could argue 2 actually aren't present. We've got the distance to goal, and we've got the number of defenders back. So we had a question here. It seems like somebody has a bit of a jumpy screen. We had a shot taken from midfield, and the goalkeeper blocked it with their hands at about 50 yards from goal. Question here, what did VAR say during this? The VAR said check complete. This is not anything that the VAR would need to get involved with because the referee saw it very, very clearly and made a very just quick and obvious decision. So this is not something where the VAR was ever going to get involved because it's a judgment decision, not a missed decision. 2 defenders back to contest would have been a promising attack but not obvious goal-scoring opportunity. Yes, that's correct. Another question, if distance is not present, then can we still say it's promising? Absolutely. That's why it's a yellow card. This is a promising attack. That's why the goalkeeper gets a yellow card here, but it's not an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. Any other questions on this clip before we move on? Okay. Next one. Let you watch that one more time. All right. And I'm going to pause it at our moment of truth. And let's see what everybody has here. All right. I'm going to end it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're a little bit all over the place on this one. So I'm going to share the results first so you can see how we came in on this one. And then I'm going to ask you to repeat a similar exercise that we did before. I'm going to start with the careless foul people, move on to the reckless challenge people, and then move on to the stopping a promising attack people. So depending on where you are, you can start typing your answers now. But please, only the careless foul people, please submit your answers into chat. Why do you have just a careless foul here and not a stopping a promising attack? So just people who have careless fouls, talk to us about why. Give you a few more moments here. All right. Now, people who had careless fouls, please pause. Those of you who had yellow card for a reckless challenge, please talk to us about why this is a reckless challenge. And please, folks, remember to choose all attendees when you're sending in your comments. A lot of you are still just choosing panelists. You should be able to drop down and choose who you want to get your comments. And it should be all panelists and attendees. So the first couple of comments have said reckless because it's not spa. Okay. But let's talk about why it's reckless. So reckless people, we have grabbing an opponent, keeping them from progressing. Okay. Grabbing the player in jersey. But I need some description of what is reckless about it. What are some of the considerations for reckless? All right, not getting much there. Let's move on to the stopping a promising attack people. Let's hear why you have a yellow card for stopping the promising attack. And everybody has their pre-typed answers ready to go. Excellent. Thanks, folks. All right, so I would encourage everybody to read through these comments. There's one thing in particular that I want to focus on. Now, a couple of people mentioned they couldn't see the results. We had 35% say this is just a careless foul. We had 24% say this is reckless. And we had 39% say that this is stopping a promising attack. So I want to start with reckless. There's nothing at all reckless about this challenge. Not in the slightest. It's just holding. It's pretty much impossible to have a reckless holding foul. Those two things are literally mutually exclusive. There can be nothing reckless about holding somebody. So if you go and you look at the considerations about holding, or excuse me, about reckless, it talks about a lack of consideration for your opponent's well-being. I'm summarizing, but that's basically it. There's nothing about a holding foul that's going to cause, potential injury or, it's going to hurt somebody. And there's nothing in a hold that should be reckless. So there's nothing reckless about this foul. It's cynical. That's correct, but it's not reckless. So moving us along then to a discussion about whether or not this is just a careless foul or there needs to be a caution for stopping a promising attack. The big thing that we want to look at with stopping a promising attack is obviously clear possession of the ball, but do they have space and do they have options? Options is a word that we have to talk about a lot when we're considering stopping a promising attack. Now remember, we don't have the same threshold for SPA, stopping a promising attack, that we do for DOGSO, denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. It doesn't have to be every box being checked like we have with DOGSO. It just has to be a preponderance of them. And so with this situation, we've got clear possession of the ball. We've got direction. This player was going on to goal into this space, or at least towards the goal. We have a numerical advantage because we have this player, and this player, and the player with the ball attacking this space. So one could argue where it's relevant for this attack, it would be 4-on-3, maybe 4-on-2, depending on how you feel about this guy. This defender's walking, this player's running to get into the attack. So one could argue if this player doesn't hold the attacker back, this attacker runs into this space and becomes 1, 2, 3, 4 on 2. Maybe there's a third over here off to the side. But the big thing we have to think about is, does this player have options? And the answer very clearly is yes in this scenario. He has multiple options. It's very easy to see a scenario where he attacks this space. One of these two defenders has to commit to stop the ball, which frees up either this player or this player to continue with the attack. So in this scenario, 3 of the 4 boxes are present. The one that's missing of the 4 is clearly distance. This is far away. But if you've got 3 of the 4 boxes checked, most notably is there time, space, and options, then we're probably going to be leaning towards stopping a promising attack. The answer on this one is yes, we want a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. Does anybody have any questions on that analysis? We had a question here. Should we change our body orientation to see the attackers? Yes and no. I mean, I think if you go back and you look at this, the referee's position is okay. He's got his body towards there. I think the big thing is when you see a scenario like this, first of all, when you watch the referee, he never turns his head to the left. So he doesn't look to see what's over his left shoulder ever, which is part of the problem. He's not aware of what's around him. He's only aware of what's in front of him. So when this foul happens, he's not aware that there's more options. But secondarily, as you run towards this foul, you can tuck your head to the left real quick just to see if there's anybody else around, to see what's going on, to see what the space and the options look like, so that you are aware that maybe you have a 4-on-2 or 3 developing here. So I think awareness of what's around you, I would not suggest body orientation at this part of the field. The only time we want to adjust our body orientation is the final third, when we're getting in and around the penalty area. Any other questions on that analysis? So I want to copy one person's comment here that is the most convincing for me, and I'm going to paste it into the screen now. In the meantime, we have a question. Is this a situation where the AR could help? Absolutely, but we want to be careful that we talk about what they're going to help with. So when we say, yes, the AR can help, really what we want the AR's help with is the considerations for SPA. We don't want the AR trying to come in here and say foul, 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 or raising the flag for a foul. None of that is necessary in this situation because of the referee's position. The referee can clearly see this is a foul, has clearly acted on it. So we don't need help there, but what we could have here is the AR chiming in and saying, I have SPA, I have SPA. If the referee hears the AR say that, maybe he takes a quick glance and sees that the considerations are present for SPA, and then that makes him take the action. So good question, Callie. Yes, the AR can be involved by chiming in there and saying SPA, SPA, SPA. Any other questions on this clip? Okay, then I will move us on to the next one. Watch that again. And one more time, and then I'll pause it at the moment of truth. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll again. And let's see what you have. A few more seconds. All right, in the poll. So before I share the results, and actually I'm not going to share it because apparently some people are having some difficulty seeing it. So 35% of us say this is just a careless foul, no misconduct necessary. 50% of us say that we have a yellow card for a reckless challenge here. And 14% say we have a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. And one person says red card for serious foul play. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is not serious foul play so we can get away from that one really, really quickly. I want to give everybody a hint. I'm going to close this and I'll reopen it in a second. So of the 6 clips we're going to look at so far, what are these titled? They're titled tactical fouls. So if you pay attention, up here you'll notice these are fouls about challenges. Down here we have fouls that are considered tactical in nature. So we can pick up a hint that maybe when we're looking at clips, the name of the clip might help us narrow our focus for what we should be thinking about or learning from. Oftentimes the learning point is the name of the clip. So in this specific example, where we're looking at a potential tactical foul, there's a good chance that if we were concerned about this being reckless, we would have had this under the challenges. This is not a reckless foul. All this is, it is a defender putting his leg out. It's a simple trip. He doesn't go into the player. He doesn't put his studs into him. He's not a slide challenge. It's not anything that has any kind of force to it. Nothing about this challenge is reckless in nature. He just sticks his foot out and makes contact with the opponent. It's a simple trip. So then the question we have to ask ourselves is this stopping a promising attack? And so I would ask us to think about the considerations again. Is there a numerical advantage? Is there time? Is there space? What's the direction? And does the player have options? And so really when we think about that, we're looking at a player on the ball. Let's pretend this player doesn't exist because if he hadn't committed the foul, he wouldn't be relevant to this play. The player's coming in this direction with the ball, which means the direction he's going, there might be two defenders, maybe a third, but the direction that this player is going is clearly across the field. which is going to take out of consideration these two players. But most importantly, and what makes this foul actually a yellow card for stopping a promising attack, is this player. Watch the run that he's making and watch what would have happened had that foul not happened. This player slides the ball through. This player's on to goal, probably 1v1 because this defender is not running. So we have to be scanning the field and be aware of situations, because if this foul doesn't happen, this player has a great option to play a through ball here onto a player who's running on to goal. This player, the defender, recognizes that this attacker is moving into space and has good options and knows the only thing he can do is foul him here. This is a very cynical foul. And so with this player stepping up, with this player no longer in the equation, really it's 2v2 with this player running in behind goal. This player's next touch is going to be a ball through or over the top, which is definitely a promising attack. So again, we have to be thinking about in our analysis for potential tactical fouls, since that's what we're looking at right now, we have to think about what options did this player have. This is where reading the game comes into play. Oftentimes when we talk about reading the game, we're talking specifically about positioning. At least that's how it's interpreted. So when we read the game, what does it mean for our position, et cetera, et cetera. Reading the game for a more advanced referee means looking 2 and 3 steps ahead and understanding why players are doing things. In this scenario, if this player doesn't commit a foul, the read of the game that we would expect you to have as a referee is that this player is coming into this space, which means this defender is going to step to the ball, which opens up a ton of space behind him, which this player is actively running into. This is definitely a promising attack. And on the day, the referee recognizes it right away, and we have a yellow card. Very clear as day. So the answer here, as Mr. Marufo has shown, is a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. Any questions on that analysis? So we had a couple. What would you say about the number of defenders and number of attackers? I would say more than likely, again, if you read the play here, this is a 2v2. The player who commits the foul is beat. This player is moving this direction at speed, which means these two defenders really aren't part of the equation. Plus, this guy is walking, which means he's not going to catch up to this player if he's not fouled. So in this situation, you have this player stepping to the ball, which means you have 2 defenders against 2 attackers. I would say it's 2v2. The other thing you have to think about, it's not just simply the number of defenders and the number of attackers. It's what options do they have? And this player has a great option for a promising attack that is taken away. Any other questions on this one? Question here, does it not matter that the ball is gone before he trips him? No, and in fact, I would say the ball is only considered gone because he trips him. This touch right here, he's got possession of the ball. It's going to take him one more step to get to that ball when he gets fouled. So I have to ask you, at this moment, if this player doesn't commit the foul, who's most likely to get to the ball first? This player who's nearly 10 yards away, or this player who's only 1 yard away when the touch only went a yard or 2? It's clear that this player would maintain possession were he not tripped. So I don't think we can say the ball is gone here, because the reason the ball is gone is because he's fouled. If this player doesn't exist, and remember I said this in the first clip, take the guilty party out of the equation completely. If you take them out of the equation completely, this player is just dribbling the ball. No problem whatsoever. He's got clear possession. It's 2v2. They're off on a promising attack. General question about the reason for the yellow card that we list on the game report. SPA is not a choice that I recall seeing. It may not be at the grassroots level, Dave. I'm not 100% sure, but it definitely is one of the factors, I think, under unsporting behavior. So that would be what you would consider it. And yes, Sam, you have a good point here. Even rolling around on the ground, he almost reached the ball before the next defender. So yeah, I think we have to consider this clear possession here. Any other questions on this one before we move on? Okay. On to our next clip. You might notice this is the same game as one we've already seen, just earlier in the game. And one last time, and I'll pause it again at the moment of truth. Okay, that's our moment of truth. So here comes the poll again. I'm guessing people aren't seeing it. Please click the raise your hand icon if you cannot see the poll. Yeah, okay. We had this problem a couple nights ago. I'm sure many of you are reading that Zoom has been quite overtaken with the number of people that are using it. So sometimes some of the features get a little messed up. So I'm going to try to relaunch it again. All right, now some people are seeing it. Great, thanks. Go ahead and put your votes in. A few more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Again, because some folks are not seeing the shared results, I will tell you we have 31% saying no misconduct. This is just a careless foul. And we have about 70% saying that this is a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. That's much better. We're getting better at this. So again, we have to ask ourselves, does this player have time, space, and options as he goes into the attack? And here we are, we're at midfield. He has beaten this player. And now we have 1, 2, 3 attackers attacking a space with 1, 2, 3 defenders. Plenty of space, plenty of options. The direction is towards goal. The only thing we're missing is the distance. So again, this is another situation where we have to ask ourselves, were this player not fouled, what would likely happen? And he's running with the ball, with time, with clear space. This player is backpedaling, which means it's going to be a clear 3-on-3 scenario. We would expect a yellow card here for stopping a promising attack. Because this is clearly, again, another cynical foul committed by a player who sees that he's at a tactical disadvantage and commits an obvious blatant foul to keep the player from getting into that promising attack. So the expected answer here, as 70% of you indicated, is a caution for stopping a promising attack. Anyone have questions about that or concerns about that analysis? Good. Last one then. We had a question here, 3v3 leans towards the offense. I can say, yeah, it leans towards the offense, but really you just have to ask yourself, is that promising? And if you have a 3v3, yeah, I would say that's pretty promising as long as there's time and there's space and there's options. If the 3v3 is down in the corner flag and there's 3 attackers and 3 defenders, then no, that's probably not promising because there's no space, there's no options, there's nowhere to go, right? So it's not just 3v3 by itself, but it's, is there time, is there space, and does this player have options? And in that last clip we looked at, the answer was clearly yes to all of those. So that's why it would be considered promising. On to the next one, the last tactical fouls clip we're going to look at. All right. One more time, and I'll give you a pause at our moment of truth. Okay. And let's see what our polling says on this one. Poll is launched. Let me know if you don't see it. A few more seconds to vote. Eduardo, I read your question, but I'm not 100% sure what you mean. So if you could restate it differently so that I understand what you're talking about. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, so I think this one's a little bit more clear. 83% say this is a stopping a promising attack, yellow card. We did have a handful of people answer to the other direction. And we had 6 people actually say that this is a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. So remember, as long as there's another defender back, like you have in this scenario, it's not an obvious goal scoring opportunity. There's a chance this defender can get involved and stop a goal scoring opportunity from happening. So it's the presence of this defender in particular that makes this not dog-so. One would argue if you remove this defender and he's completely gone and this is the scenario, then yes, you would have denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. But with the presence of this defender in particular, that removes our dog-so from this situation. So again, we have 1v1, plenty of time, plenty of space, plenty of options, close to the goal. This is clearly a stopping a promising attack situation because it's 1v1. So we had somebody say the direction is not there. That's true. It's out to the wide a little bit. But again, if you take this person, this player who's guilty of the foul out of the scenario, he's going pretty much up the field. None of these other defenders are going to get anywhere close to this. So on this player's next touch, he takes the ball into the inside, and now we're going on to goal. And remember also that we don't have to have all 4 components present for us to have stopping a promising attack. What we do have here is distance to goal is good. We do have possession. We do have number of defenders is low. Maybe you can say direction would be a factor for dog-so. But for stopping a promising attack, we've got 3 of the 4 present. We have a clear SPA here. Remember, every checkbox doesn't have to be marked for us to have a SPA. It's just for the dog-so scenarios that we need every consideration to be met. Any questions on any of that? We had a question here, if a challenge is reckless in nature and SPA, what should go in the game report? The more severe of the two is always what you write it up as, so it would be the reckless challenge. Good question, though. If you have a reckless challenge that also stops a promising attack, you can just mark it as reckless. Any other questions on this before we move on to the next kind of videos that we're going to look at? So we had a question here, why does this defender count here, but the other defenders in the trip of the center circle don't? So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about with that, but what I can say is number of defenders and how important it is, particularly in scenarios like these, usually, oops, pardon me for that, usually is the difference between a yellow card and a red card. So in this scenario, this is the only defender, which means we have a 1v1 scenario. A 1v1 is promising. It's not obvious when it's the defender because you still have a goalkeeper, right? These defenders, if these are the guys you're talking about, they're not relevant because they're never going to be able to get anywhere close to the ball before the promising attack develops. So Taylor, if I didn't answer that question, maybe ask it a little bit different way so I can understand what you mean a little bit more clearly there. So we had a question here. Obviously, you should consider SPA further into the offensive third, not only near midfield. Of course, yeah, absolutely. SPA can technically exist anywhere, though it's more likely to exist in the middle of the field and as we move into the attacking third. Any other questions on tactical fouls before we move on to a couple of the other clips that I wanted to show for you this evening? All right, then just in the couple minutes we have left, we will end just around at 8 o'clock. I'm going to look at a couple of these game management clips. There's just some interesting stuff that happens that doesn't require a lot of discussion, but I think we can learn from a little bit. So I want to set this up for a moment. This is a goal kick situation. So the referee is awarded a goal kick. The goalkeeper has the ball at his feet, and he is waiting for an opportunity to arise. So I'm going to let it play first, and then we're going to talk about it for a minute. So I'm going to play it one more time. Hopefully everybody catches what happens here. The goalkeeper takes like a little half touch, this weird thing where he kicks the ball about a yard forward. And then once the attacker starts to press, so right there, he just played the ball. It rolls forward a bit. Now the attacker comes to press, and the goalkeeper kicks it away. So the scenario we have here is a double touch. It's an indirect free kick going in from where the second touch happened. The problem with this, of course, is we can see most of one half of the field, and we can't see the referee anywhere. And as you scan out, we can see him walking down there at the bottom of the center circle. So he gets this decision right, so there's no issue there. But this is a good learning point for us with the law change that we had with goal kicks now, right? So look at the referee's positioning as this goal kick is set up. He's backpedaling away, and he's going all the way to midfield like you would on a normal goal kick. The problem is everything about this goalkeeper's body language makes it look like he wants to play short. And this is what we're going to start seeing a lot of now that we don't have this requirement for the ball to leave the penalty area. We're going to see more and more at higher levels players wanting to play short. So when you have this situation where the attacking team, the team here in black or green, I can't tell what, is staying in a high press situation here, basically removing a lot of options, and this goalkeeper still seems intent on playing short, we don't want to leave this area, because everything about the way that the green team is positioning themselves here suggests that if and when this goalkeeper plays short, they are immediately going to high press. And so if that's the scenario that's going to happen when he does put the ball into play, we don't want you back at midfield when that happens, because now you're too far away from any potential challenges on the ball that might happen in this high press scenario. So when we talk about reading the game, we're not just talking about an active play and where to position yourself. We're talking about it all times. And if you watch this goalkeeper, everything about what he's doing is, how can we play short? How can we play short? How can we play short? And if this team is going to do a high press, then what we'd like you to do is take up a position right around here. It doesn't have to be in the center. It can be off to sides if the players warrant it, but only go about 35 yards from goal. The reason we suggest that is now if this goalkeeper plays short, you can jog in a little bit, close proximity, and be close to the high press. If this goalkeeper starts to run up like he's going to kick the ball a really long way, now you can turn and start running up the field, and you can close the distance or proximity to the drop zone while the ball is in the air. So taking a position around here gives you options to close proximity no matter what the goalkeeper does. So as we start to adapt more and more, particularly at the adult amateur level and some more advanced youth level, we're going to see goalkeepers more and more play short. And high press, thanks to Liverpool and Barcelona, is now a very, very hot thing in our game, and we're going to see it more and more. So we need to prepare ourselves for high press, particularly off of goal kicks, and take a position that allows us to be able to close the proximity when it does happen. Any questions on what we just talked about a little bit? So we had a couple of things here. Do we want the AR to get involved? Probably not, because it's pretty clear what happened here, and the referee, even from midfield, is going to be able to see it, right? So the goalkeeper is going to be able to, or excuse me, the referee is going to be able to see that the goalkeeper touches the ball and then touches it again. So the AR probably doesn't need to get involved here to help the referee get this decision correct. So as we've been teaching referees now more and more, the methodology we want you to go through when you see a foul is look to the referee, and if the referee is reacting to it already, it means they saw it, they've made a decision, and they don't require your involvement or your assistance. They've already made the decision. So in this scenario, look to the referee, and if he's already going with the whistle, no need to be involved here. Where the AR can be helpful is before this also happens, he could be saying high press, the goalkeeper might play short. He can remind the referee of what the tactical setup might be in this scenario if he sees the referee running a very, very long ways away. So that's where good ARs at the top level can be really helpful. Just tactical reminders if they see the referee not reading something the way that maybe it ought to be read. We had a question here, discipline for the goalkeeper. No discipline there. We do not give cautions for double touches or when the ball gets played back to the goalkeeper and the goalkeeper picks it up. Even if there's an attacker right there, if the ball is going to go in the back of the net, we do not give misconduct to goalkeepers in those scenarios. Okay, I think we have time for one more clip. Sorry, we had a question here. If the goalkeeper touches the ball in the air inside the box and the defender hands it back to his hands, is that allowed or is it a direct free kick? I'm not sure I understand that question, Alexis, so I'm going to move on because there's a couple of different things that could mean. All right, let me see which other ones we have here. I need to see which clips these are. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about that one. This is a good one. All right, so this will be our last clip of the evening. So the question here we're going to ask ourselves, and play it one more time. A couple things in this. I'm only going to reference, I'm going to put a poll up here in a second. I'm only going to reference the interaction between this player and this player. So disregard the foul for right now when I put the poll up. All right. I'm going to put a poll up here. Let's see what you have here. Can you see the poll? Please use the raise your hand icon if you can't see the poll. Perfect, thank you. Let me see what's going on here. Try to relaunch it. Should be up now. If you can't see it, let me know. Perfect, okay, everybody can see it. Thank you. So while people put their votes in, we said, somebody had a question. Did you say that if there's an attacker and the keeper picks the ball up from a pass back, we do not give a caution? That is correct. It's just an indirect free kick, but no misconduct. All right, a few more seconds. All right. So we're split pretty much right down the middle. We've got about 58% who say no card, management only, and we've got about 40% saying this is a caution for delaying a restart. So there's a couple of factors that we want to look at. I'm going to talk about this for a couple of minutes. One is, can we be more proactive with this? hard to pick up right before the clip, but watch this. Player kicks the ball away. The foul was clearly there. Player kicks the ball away. We have to be sensitive to those kind of situations, because if this player, now none of their body language suggests it, but what if this player wanted to run up, put it down, and put the ball in behind for this player? There's an opportunity for a quick restart here, though the players don't seem like they want it. This player makes sure they can't get it. So when you see a player kick a ball away like this, unless there are players running over to grab it when the guy kicks it away, we're not going to have a yellow card, but we do need to address this behavior because there's a reason he's doing it. So we can go and we can talk to this player, but that's a minor point. When we move on to the next part, there's a concept I want to introduce to you about what we can manage and what we can't manage. Some of you have heard this before in previous training sessions, but when we're talking about things that you can manage in a game versus things that we consider to be 100% misconduct, agree that that term exists, we want you to manage the technical infractions. We don't want you to manage the physical infractions. So if someone commits a reckless challenge and it's clearly reckless and it's clearly a yellow card, we don't want you to say, well, that was his first foul, so I'm going to see if I can manage that and keep him from committing another reckless challenge. A reckless challenge is a reckless challenge is a reckless challenge. If a physical challenge warrants a yellow card, don't manage it, just show a yellow card. When we say manage the technical, don't sanction the physical. When we say manage the technical, what we're talking about is situations like this. This is not a physical infraction. This is a technical infraction. What we're talking about here is delaying a restart. Does this player delay the restart? Maybe, yes. But there's a couple of factors that give this referee some wiggle room. First of all, where did the foul happen versus where did this quick restart happen? The foul happened up here. This happened right there. So one tactic that the referee can have to completely avoid this scenario is if you've got a free kick up here, there's an argument that we could have a ceremonial free kick here. So if you see a player starting to position themselves like they might want to block this, and you've got the option to award a ceremonial free kick somewhere in and around the penalty area, take it. Tweet, 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 tweet. The free kick is right here, please. Now you've avoided this entire scenario. But secondly, if the referee shows a little bit of urgency, you can see him doing it. He's saying it's up here. Instead of saying that, go and stand there. Tweet, tweet, it's right here, please. Now you avoid this entire scenario. But if you do see it starting to set up, gain the little bit of proximity there and make sure you're talking to this player and telling them to back up. Avoid this whole thing from happening. Prevent this from happening if you can by getting in there and saying, hold on, either the free kick's going to be up here or please take a step back. Because this player clearly is going up there to stand near where the free kick is going to take, and so it just slows down the restart. But then we have to say, does this player just kick the ball into him on purpose, or does Valeri actually reach out and stop it from happening? And this is going to be a minor thing here, but once the player stands there, this player very deliberately just kicks the ball into him. Valeri doesn't reach his leg out to try to block it. He doesn't reach out and kick it away. He just stands in front of it. If you have a player that just stands in front of the ball and a player kicks it into them, we don't usually want to give a yellow card. Now, if this player runs way out of his way to go and stand there right before he kicks it, that's one thing. But this player has stood there. This player puts it down and kicks it into him on purpose. He's not actually trying to play quick here. He's just trying to kick the ball into this player and earn a yellow card for him. So ideally here, we don't issue a yellow card. Now, there's some flexibility. If this has been a testy game, if the players are upset, if this is not the first time this player has gotten involved in something like this, then of course that scenario changes a little bit. If we had a little bit more time, I'd give you a poll that said if this was his first interaction, if he already has a yellow card, if you've been talking to him the whole game. There's all kinds of different scenarios that can warrant this player being escalated to a yellow card for this. But if this is the first time a player is being involved in anything like this, we want to see you manage your way out of this and not burn a yellow card here. Because at the end of the day, this player is really not trying to play quick. They're obviously, everybody's running, nobody's paying attention. This is obviously a scenario where they're going to play the ball in. and the free kick is being taken almost 10 yards away from where it actually should be. So the referee has some outs here that they can use to avoid giving a yellow card. If you have those options, and if the game is not challenging, the temperature's not up, this player has not been a problem throughout the game, we'd like to see you use them. So in this case, the ideal scenario is you prevent it from happening by indicating more clearly where you want the free kick to have taken. If this is where it's supposed to be, then you're putting your body in there and you're moving this player back so that you avoid this whole scenario. Avoidance is key here, and understanding where you have some gray area. Any questions on that analysis? So a couple people saying, Matt, they disagree with this. I'm telling you the answer from Pro was they don't want to see a yellow card here. So do what you can to avoid a yellow card in this situation by being proactive. That's the lesson we want to learn here, is this is not a 100% yellow card situation. It's not 100%. And where it's not 100%, we want to see you working actively to try to keep those situations from happening. This is clearly not 100% caution. We can argue it till we're blue in the face, but it's not 100%. And so there are a lot of different tactics we can use to avoid this caution. We had a question here. You said put your body in there, but shouldn't you get out of the way and use your voice to back the defender up? That's great until the player doesn't speak the same language that you speak. And so if you're saying back up, back up, back up, and the player doesn't speak English, now when you show a yellow card, they're going to be frustrated because they didn't understand what you said. By putting your body in there before this happens, and again, remember, this is a freeze frame well before it happens. At this moment, you know this player is going to try to get in the way. Go and stand there and say back up and make a gesture so that they know. And if you walk towards the player a little bit, they're going to instinctively back up. So that's why I say physicality, your presence in that space can help more than just your voice. Most of us here on this call live in California. We have a lot of Spanish speakers that we referee. We can't rely on just our voice speaking in English and expect the message to get across. For me, the best scenario here for the referee is to go stand where he wants the free kick to be taken and tweet, 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 tweet as soon as he sees this starting to happen and back this player up. Question here, would you be distracting the defender by telling him to move back? No, not at all. He is choosing to put himself in this situation. It's your job to manage him out of it. So again, we can talk about this at length. We're past where I wanted to be time-wise. The best scenario here is insist on the free kick taking place where it was supposed to have taken place. That's going to help you to avoid this entire scenario. We will look more in our call next week. This is clearly a good subject for us. We will look at our call next week on a lot more of these game management clips, so we can talk about this in more detail. All right, we are over our time this evening, so without further ado, I thank you for joining us and bid everybody a good night. Thank you, everybody.